From the Shooting from the Lip studio in Louisville, Kentucky, it's the KT Unearthly Show with your hosts, Kevin Hale and Tiffany Mac.
What is up, everybody? Kevin Hale, alive and kicking on this Friday night with the latest KT Unearthly show with my partner in crime, the lovely Tiffany Mac. Tiffany, what is up?
Oh, I'm just excited about this show, but I've put down my daughter 4 times already tonight, so I'm hoping to God she decides to listen and actually stay down, honestly. So I'm sweating.
It's all right.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Friday night, the week has officially come to an end, and then I guess that's kind of been the routine. You know, we do the weekly grind, and then you and I shut it down on a Friday night. So here we are.
Yes, we've had a lot of each other this week.
Yeah, this is
our fourth show.
Fourth show, and you know, for shits and giggles, we should have just done something last night, but did we? I don't think we did. We didn't talk.
No.
Or maybe. All right. Again, this Friday night, July 22nd, 2016. I got to give a shout out to my oldest, Kelsey. Today's her birthday in the Washington, D.C. area.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kels. Hope you had a good day. I talked to her, and I think she did have a good day. So
that's awesome.
Social media. You can subscribe to our show on iTunes and YouTube. Twitter at The Shooting Lip. Tiffany's at Tiffany Mac _ET. Mine at Kevin Hale 423. You can like us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Shooting from the Lip, and the latest Facebook page, the KT Unearthly Show. Live tonight via Blog Talk Radio. Tonight's guest, Margie Kay. She is the editor and publisher of Unex News Magazine. She does a radio show as well, host of her radio show. So it's going to be a fun guest. This is one of those shows where you got paranormal and ufology. That's like my cake, and I get to eat too. So, yeah. As part of our routine, Tiff, we take on our KT Unearthly name. We swap the letters and go TK Foreplay, which is a little quick paranormal story, if you will, talk about and play along with me. There was the Olympics are coming up, and the Olympics they're in Brazil, Rio, but there is a story that I came across where... Wait,
I have a question. Are you going to the Olympics?
No, no, I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going to go participate. No. The truth is, honestly, I probably won't even watch it because I'm just not into the Olympics. Anyways, you're messing my train of thought here. Anyways,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There is a story that has come out where evidently there is supposedly a part of the village that was evidently built on a sacred mass grave.
Oh, buddy.
A mass grave of African slaves. And the fear, there's going to be some ghostly activity, paranormal, or poltergeist type of activity. What's your take, not much on it, but the notion of landmarks, anything built on, sacred ground or burial sites?
I'm pretty big wimp when it comes to stuff like that. I'm not the kind of person that usually goes out and does all of these, like, Nightmare Forest and Waverly Hills. And I get really I get scared because I know that there are some things out there that you should be scared of. And so I've never really been able to do anything like that. The whole ghost investigation has been a little bit beyond me because I usually do have these feelings and senses, and I end up in a bad position. Now, when it comes to graves and things like that, I'm really thinking, you're sort of tempting pissed off spirits. You're tempting them, especially when you're building on top of them and you're not respectful of their placement. You're not respectful of their spirits. Is it going to happen? I think that people are going to be really distracted with the Olympics. They're already worried about different violence and demonstrations, and I think there's more. Yeah, man. I think that there's more important aspects of this at the forefront. But it is terrifying to think that if they built part of this village on top of a mass grave, I don't know. That sounds like they could potentially have some problems. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. The story is that there's someone who's making the statement is accusing developers of destroying archaeological remains of his ancestors at this some old sugar mill, and evidently, which I didn't know until now, Brazil was the world's last country to abolish slavery in late 1888. So by that point, more than, as I'm seeing here, 4 million Africans had been sent to the country. Their blood was spilled. I don't want it to be in vain. That was the quote. Hey, stay tuned. It'd be cool if all of a sudden you see like a track and somebody running track, and they like trip, and it looks like someone just stuck their foot out or hand out. Yeah, and they blame it on a foot, but you don't see the foot. What do you do then?
Well, I don't think that'll be taken into account. I mean, if somebody trips, I think they're just going to say they tripped.
What if they trip? What if they trip 2 times? What if they trip, get up, start running again, and then trip one more time? First time you could say, okay, it's an accident.
Invisible feet?
Well, I mean, it is a burial site. There's more than one probable body buried there. So, Tiffany, play along tonight. Play along.
I'm sorry. My family actually owns property where there's a Native American burial ground. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I think that you have to be respectful of the dead and the ones that are living. So, I don't know. Let's just say I haven't been there, and I don't plan on going there, and I don't plan on going to the Olympics this year. Okay. Let's just leave it at that.
I know where we can go. Let's go to our segment of the night, our guest of the night.
Yes.
With all due pleasure, Tiffany, please introduce our guest.
Our guest tonight is a lady that I got to meet at the Ozark UFO conference back in April with KGRA. She and I sort of had a moment. I was able to actually connect with her a little bit more on a very personal note, and it was actually a really amazing moment. And I wish that I had more time to speak to her because she's just very compassionate and very educated in this field. Margie Kay is a paranormal and UFO investigator, and she's also a remote viewer and author. She's clairsentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant, and she owns a construction company and forensic investigation company. And she's also a publisher of the UNX News magazine and hosts UNX News radio show for several years. And she's extremely proficient in what she calls the P scan, which is a psychic scan. So I can't wait to hear about all of this. We would like to welcome Margie to the show. How are you, Margie?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been a long time coming. I was very glad that you said that you were willing to come on our show. Explain a little bit about your abilities and what you've been using them for on a paranormal scale in a everyday scale for us, please.
Well, I'm a natural psychic and remote viewer. I have not taken the formal remote viewing training that is offered by some people, and that is a military method that was developed quite some time ago. There's 2 methods. That's one of them, and the way I do it, I'm just a natural remote viewer. I just simply send my consciousness out to take a look at something, either something that's current or in the past, and I watch it like it was a movie, like I'm actually there, and will physically see everything in quite a lot of detail. So I've been able to not only do, mundane things like figure out why a car is not working or find lost objects, but also I've helped in over 50 cases with law enforcement and private investigators working on missing person cases and big thefts and homicides, things like that, and have been successful in, I think, all but four of those cases. I've successfully found something that helps solve the case. And then, of course, I use it in paranormal and UFO investigations. And that comes in very handy because sometimes I'll be able to, if there's a question about something that may have happened, and I'll get all the information from the witnesses, but then I'll go back later and I'll remote view the situation to see what I see happened, and that way I can determine maybe more details or get, answers to questions.
Do you feel like this is something that you were born with and sort of developed naturally, or is it something that you just sort of had an interest in and self-educated in the area?
Pretty much all of the above. Mm-hmm. I knew that I was different by the time I was about 2.5 years old, and I was asking questions about things that no one could answer, about things that I was seeing, which at the time were, bright lights moving about, and turned out, their energy and electromagnetic fields around trees, things like that other people couldn't see. So I started investigating at a young age, but it's definitely a, probably genetic type of thing where you just have certain abilities to do things, just like somebody who's a runner or a musician or something. It's, it's usually genetic. And I didn't have any discouragement from my parents. They didn't encourage me either, but they didn't tell me I couldn't do something, or they didn't want me to study it. So I was checking books out by age 10 on every subject I could think of in order to study it. But here's where it gets weird and kind of a little over the edge for some people to understand, and that is my contact with extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings over the years. And I have come to find out that they have actually assisted me with these abilities. So that's sometimes a little hard for some people to take or to understand, but that's my understanding, and they've been with me all along, and even in previous lifetimes they've told me. So this is a process, and that doesn't just happen to me either. It's other people that they work with, and they'll choose certain people to work with throughout multiple lifetimes so that they in turn can assist others.
I'm going to try to explain remote viewing to our listeners, and you can fill in where I missed the mark. So remote viewing is something that we all have the ability to do, because we're all sort of multi-dimensional beings. Now, whether we're closed off or open to them, I think is probably a bigger aspect of it. So remote viewing is moving your consciousness from one location, our immediate surroundings, to another remote location. And it's using our consciousness to see something that we can't see with our physical eyes. Is that pretty much a good description?
Yeah, that's excellent description.
Okay.
And it's almost like looking at it with your physical eyes, because it comes back to your brain as a picture.
Right. So how did you start to recognize that these were real places that you were traveling to with your mind?
Oh gosh, I guess when the first time I was requested to help with a missing person, and I was about 22 years old, or maybe a little older than that, maybe about 25 years old, with a missing person case. And so I just thought I would try it and see if I could see where this person was. And to my surprise, it took me a few minutes. At that time, it took me a little longer, and I had to kind of put myself in a trance state. And But after doing it so much, I don't have to do that anymore. But anyway, I put myself in a trance state, and then I was suddenly standing on a street corner, and I looked up to see the street signs with these names of the streets on it, and I was talking to the missing person was a 14-year-old girl. I was talking to her aunt on the phone, and so I'm describing the name, and then I walk down the street and I see this house that I'm drawn to, and I get a house number. I gave that to her, and she freaked out because she said, I was just there. That was a house we were looking at, we suspected, where the girl was. And so she called the police immediately. They went back there, and they found the girl exactly where I said she would be, in the shed in the back. And that's one place that the police hadn't looked earlier. So luckily that one turned out good because she was unharmed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But if they'd waited till the next morning, she was going to be gone. But anyway, that was my first experience with absolutely knowing that I could remote view and put my consciousness in another location.
How long has remote viewing been an issue, and what kind of scientific evidence is there to support remote viewing?
Well, this really started, we believe, in Russia. The Russians were using it to spy. And that was back at least the 70s, the 60s, and maybe even before that into the 50s. Then the United States found out about this, and they decided they were going to try their own remote viewing program, and they developed a set of calls to train anybody. And they actually preferred not people like me who could just do this naturally. They prefer people that had no training in this at all, because they could then train a person to do this. So, that's kind of the history of it as far as scientifically that goes. But this has been a technique that's been used for thousands of years by people who just have the natural ability to do it. As far as scientific evidence, there is scientific evidence for it. It's not something that I have taken time to study. I've seen it on the internet. If you type it in, I'm sure some things will come up about that. But there's, the evidence is, if you take 3 or 6 people and have them look at an object that's in an envelope that's sealed, and they're all in separate rooms, and then they all come up with the same thing, you cannot deny that. And then when you and this has been done, especially by the military, then they'll go to the location and they'll find exactly what they said. So there's proof. I mean, it absolutely works.
So is this something that our military, do you feel that our military continues to use remote viewers today?
Well, supposedly that program was shut down a number of years ago, but I really don't think so. I think they probably gave it a different name and maybe changed their location. I would be highly skeptical that they did not use this because it was so successful. I mean, they used it in finding hostages and finding out where captors were in some of the instances where Americans were held hostage. And it was very successful. So why would you stop a program like that when you know it works?
Right. Well, Margie, you actually wrote an article that I found, and it was talking about remote viewing in the pyramids. Can you describe your experience with seeing the pyramids?
Well, are you talking about the pyramids in Egypt or the pyramids in Mexico?
Well, this is a Great Pyramid. The
Great Pyramid, okay. Yeah, I have taken a look at those several times. There was I asked to look at them a long, long time ago, maybe at least 50,000 years. And what I saw was a bustling city with roads and lush vegetation everywhere and water and completely finished, smooth exteriors on the pyramids. And then there were caps on top of each one of them. One was gold, one was silver, and one was bronze, I believe. And there were also some type of flying, like planes. They were small, but they were definitely planes with wings flying around. I mean, it just almost looked like a modern city. It was absolutely amazing.
Did you see any different types of humans, or were there, I'm thinking maybe the Anunnaki, or did you see anything that looked a little bit out of the ordinary?
Yeah. Oh yeah, on the ground. And see, now as we're speaking about this, I'm just doing it again. I'm taking another look. Yeah, there were human beings, and there was a much taller race that looked like humans, but they were very tall compared, and they just towered over everyone else, and they were definitely in charge. And I kind of had the feeling that the human beings were servants or slaves to the tall people that were there, and they were working, and they were mining too. They were mining gold. I've seen this on a number of occasions.
How far back are we talking, Margie?
50 to 100,000 years minimum.
Is who built the pyramids? I know the people built them. Who instructed them?
These were from off planet. I see them coming in spacecraft from off planet. I don't know if that means they were interdimensional, but at the time they moved in, I see craft coming in from the skies.
Where I'm going is that this supports, to me, the ancient astronaut theory.
Yes, you bet. And the Anunnaki.
Right.
Well, and the giants. There's so much cover-up about the giants that have been found, these giant skeletons all over. I just have a feeling that that's who they were.
Is that something that you've ever tried to remote view on your own? Is these giant skeletons that are being dug up? Like, you see pictures of it on Facebook and on the internet, but
yeah.
I am so timid when it comes to that because I'm scared that they're just photoshopped. I don't have any archaeology experience, and I have never seen one in person. Is that something that you've looked at?
Yes, I have looked at it. I had actually, the first time I did was about 4 years ago for an investigator in Pennsylvania. He called me for some assistance by remote viewing because he'd had some very strange things happen over the last 40 years on this one property. And he was in a long line of investigators who had worked on this for this family who has lived there for over 100 years, through generations on this property of strange things happening. And I told him, and this is what I tell everybody at first, don't tell me anything that you're working on. Don't tell me the reason why or anything you found. Just tell me the location, and that way I'll go there, remote view, and see what I see. So that takes away any, possibility that I could be biased or taking information from, about the case. So I that's what I did, and I immediately was taken to be looking at this kind of an old, washed-out stream gully area where it went down below the ground level, and I followed that down at a slope, and then I turned to the right, and there was a cave opening. I went into the cave, and then there was another opening where the cave went down to the left side for several yards, and then it opened up into this gigantic rectangular room, and right across from the doorway was a giant skeleton just in a sitting position with its head bent over and its feet out in front of it. And so the investigator was just dumbfounded because that is exactly what he and the homeowner had found, an exact location. And then they said, well, there were some giant skeletons on the property, and they're gone now. Can you tell me anything about that? So then I was drawn back out of the cave into a different location on the property to a mound area that looked just like a circular mound. And I looked inside of it, and I saw 12 giant skeletons in a circle with their heads all pointed to the middle of this circle, and then the dirt on top of them. And he said that is what they found in the late 70s, and they actually they didn't know what it was. They were farming the land, and they dug in to see, what was under this mound, and they found a giant skeleton with its head pointed towards the middle, and then they started digging, and they found evidence of more. So they took one of them. They took one of the skeletons, and they hid it. And then they called the Smithsonian, or they were going to call the Smithsonian the next day, but they hadn't called anyone else. So the only people that knew about this were the homeowners and the investigator, but when they spoke on the phone, they didn't talk about this. The next morning, all of the skeletons had been dug up and were gone. There was only one entrance to get onto their property, and that was right next to their house with a locked gate. The gate had not been unlocked. There were no tracks. They heard no vehicles come in. They heard no helicopters. And they could not understand how this could possibly have happened, but it did.
So what did you see as that? Yeah, that is, I'm like number one mystery here.
Yeah, how did it happen, Margie? The suspense is killing me.
So I remote viewed it again, and I saw a silent helicopter come in with human beings, and they took them all overnight.
Now, the Smithsonian is actually played a big part in a lot of different artifacts disappearing, correct?
Yes, they have. And a lot of them have been the giant skeletons.
Yes. So, I mean, how are we going to ever take this subject seriously if evidence just keeps disappearing? I mean, and what's the purpose? Why don't they just allow the information to be out there and say, yeah, there were big freaking people out there, and they were all over the earth, and why? What's it matter?
Because they would have to admit that they came from somewhere else rather than the Earth, and they don't want to cause panic.
I can't imagine how that could cause panic.
That would kind of ruin a lot of the religious people's thoughts on Genesis. That whole
we already know that there were giants in the land.
Yeah, the Bible talks about the Nephilim and the giants.
Oh, okay, no, that's a good. Oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah, David.
But, I mean, Goliath. He was a big old hairy beast, right? He was a big man, a giant of a man.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't understand why some of these ancient artifacts and these ancient peoples, why are they being kept secret? Anyway.
Well, more and more of this is coming out. There are a lot more TV shows, and people are investigating. I believe it will eventually come out, and the proof will be known to everyone. Because, see, now people don't trust. They're not going to call the Smithsonian if they find something. They're going to call mainstream news or not mainstream news, but it will get out.
Yeah. Gosh, that's a lot to process.
Mhm.
I love it. I want to go back real quick to the pyramids. I'm a fan of ancient aliens. I buy into the whole ancient alien theory, especially going back in the day when the pyramids were established, built, and you go to all these sites, whether it's the Mayan, all these ancient buildings, these pyramids, these things that were built back in the day. When you look at the precision is like damn near perfect. Everything measures out right. Things fit into place. Yet, the modern scientists or people, would go back and say, no, the people that did it were the people who, had the little rock and hammer, and they were the ones that actually pulled it off. To me, that doesn't make sense. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. Convince me that the slave laborers back in the day, were geniuses the people who potentially designed these pyramids were just absolute geniuses. And
I don't think anybody buys that anymore. They were so heavy and put together so precisely, not only the pyramids, but so many sites around the world. in Peru and Turkey, and just unbelievable construction. They just did a show, I can't remember the name of it, but maybe on Ancient Aliens. The big obelisks with the very, very precisely carved and detailed objects. Well, they know that this had to be done by laser and machinery. It could not possibly have been done by hand. That's been proven by master stonemasons. And they're thousands and thousands of years old. So the truth is going to come out about this. Nobody believes that people with a chisel and a hammer built the pyramids or any of these other ancient sites.
See, that's what's going to drive me crazy, Tiffany and Margie. When I'm laying on my deathbed and I'm blacking out, I'm going to say, wait a minute, has aliens been, the truth about aliens come out? All that stuff. And if they say no, I'm gonna grab the doctor. I'm like, no, I need a month or so. I want to see this in my lifetime. I need to know.
Yeah.
I will. That would be like a ultimate party pooper for me. If I once I hit
die
that dirt
before the release.
Die before the information. Exactly. Like,
well, you can catch it in your next lifetime.
Well, okay. Well, we're getting into a whole other topic there.
Kevin, Margie and I can tell you for certain right now, Margie, it is real. We are not alone.
I do believe it. I do believe it. I'm sure Margie and Tiffany, with your all's resources, the people who the people we've had on the show, I buy into it. But until, we see Hillary or Donald shaking hands with some entity or being from another planet, that's what it's going to take. I want the world. I want the world to know. I don't want it just to be.
What? That's not going to happen. It's going to be a humanoid. It's going to be somebody that looks close enough like us that doesn't terrify the rest of the planet.
Well, I get that. I believe that's the case. I believe they're here and they're already among us. I just want, during that interview, when he inadvertently or forgets and, the little fly comes flying into the picture and his tongue goes out and grabs it about a foot away, how cool would that be? See, that's what I'm talking about.
Wow. I can't wait for that either, Kevin. Let's just...
little science fiction thrown in there.
Yeah, just throw that in there.
Wait, Margie. Now, come on. Is that how is that science fiction? How do you know?
I don't know. I've just never seen one like that, but it's possible.
Neither have I.
Okay.
See, Tiffany and I have both seen ETs and interdimensionals. So for us, there's no question that they're here, they've always been here, and in my opinion, they created us.
Right.
How many species are there, though, Margie? And they're like supposedly... there's a lot. I know there... Are we talking dozens?
Thousands.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay.
Thousands. Just think about the billions and billions of stars.
Oh, yeah.
And the more billions of planets just in our galaxy alone, and then the billions of galaxies. It's mind-boggling to think that we're the only ones. It's impossible.
Oh, of course. Well, it's arrogant too.
And then if you want to go into dimensions, minimum of 12 dimensions. That is what Einstein thought. We've got beings standing next to us right now that we can't see, but they're there, and they're using the same space in another dimension.
Well, that would explain some things, wouldn't it, Kevin? We've had some very strange experiences in our house lately, and it's very strange to have someone peeking in at you and not knowing who they are or where they're from, and just be able to retain some composure and just say, you're not supposed to be here. You're not in the right place. I think you need to go, without freaking everybody out around you. There's always a question in my head when these experiences happening. It's almost like, why can't anyone else see these beings? Am I hallucinating? Am I imagining it? But there's so many other people out there, like Margie and many other people that we've met along the road, to getting this show started. There's other people out there. They're just not right beside us when it happens.
I buy into the notion too that we are one way, shape, or form. We're alien. We're a product of what they created. And with that said, our DNA is alien. And the DNA that I have that's deemed my junk DNA, or, that's turned off, Margie and Tiffany, you guys are probably you're wired different than me, which allows for this connection or this way that you can see, feel, experience things that, others can't. And I'm jealous of that.
No, that is.
What do you think about that, Margie?
That is right.
Do you believe that?
That's correct. And there's another part of this too, and that is vibration. See, everybody has a certain vibration. And as we go through life and we learn and we practice things like meditation and remote viewing, things like that, our vibration goes up. And so that's why when you're standing with a whole group of people and a UFO flies by in the air, or an ET walks by, or a shadow person walks by, and you're the only one who sees it, it's because you're at a high enough vibration to see this other object that's in the next dimension, in the fifth dimension. And it has lowered its vibration just enough so you can see it. Now, and this is also explains why these beings and these objects seem to appear and then disappear. Because, and I'll give you an example of something that happened to me recently, last August. I was on an investigation with 3 other investigators and a witness at this very busy site in Independence. We've been out there a number of times. Well, on this particular time, towards the end of the evening, I saw an extraterrestrial standing a foot away from me. And I was shocked by it, and I stood up out of my chair, and then I couldn't see it anymore. I sat back down. A few minutes later, I relaxed, and I was very tired for the evening, which also is another thing. At night, you're using your night vision instead of your daytime vision, and you can see more. You can see more at a higher vibration level by doing that. But anyway, and also by being tired.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So it happened again. I saw it again. I kind of was shocked by it again, and I couldn't see it. Well, then it happened a third time, and I finally said, "Okay, this is enough. I'm leaving here." So I knew that being was there the whole time, probably a long time before, and I think he hangs out at this spot. Excuse me. And I figured out later what happened was I was tired, my eyes were tired, I was using my night vision, and I slipped into a higher vibration state so that I could see this being. And everybody else around me was not in that high vibration state, so they didn't see it. But it doesn't mean it wasn't there, because I know it was.
I'm going to bring up something that someone near and dear to me shared. You're talking about this vibration. It's not just not visual. It could be something you feel, right?
Well, I can see it too, but
you can
go
see,
ahead.
well, you see it because of. Do you actually truly see it? Physically see it, or is it in your, with your remote viewing that you see it? How is that?
It's in my remote viewing.
Okay, so this person said what she's been experiencing lately are these what she described as like electric shocks. She'll just feel this shock. But to go back further, she also would experience like feeling not alone at times at night. She's talking about how now she's having these, out of the blue, she'll be somewhere and all of a sudden it's like it's not a shock. She actually, why I'm bringing it up, she called it a very aggressive vibration just goes through her. And she can be anywhere. So it's like, initially I thought, well, if it's some kind of spirit or something, it's probably, the fact that she's somewhere, I'm thinking, okay, if it's a spirit, ghost, then it's probably, that's not the case because she's any and everywhere. But then now how you just described that if you got this connection and, you know, something is flying by or somebody or something is in that zone of yours. I mean, am I reaching here? Could she's experiencing?
Well,
be
now
something?
when you say, does she experience this throughout her entire body or one specific location?
It's like she just stepped on something and this vibration just shoots through her.
Okay.
Now she's like, initially it was like, oh, she was, you know, just kind of played it off. But now she's thinking, what's wrong with me? Or am I attracting some type of energy? And, you know, so now she describes it's like the last one she had. It was like just a shock. And
okay.
She said it happens too often to just be.
This is a transitional phase, and a lot of sensitives are experiencing this right now. It's a transitional period to move into a higher dimension and a higher vibration. So it's happening a lot to mostly people who are sensitive. And if they're right on the cusp, people who are not sensitive are becoming sensitive. And I think that this is the reason that this is happening for her. And a lot of
growing
others.
pains?
Yeah, it's kind of like it is kind of like growing pains. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting way to put it. I can say she's 21, so it's not like, you know, it's not like I think her growing days per se are, you know, physically growing or past her.
Well, the spiritual growing pains are different.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The
physical part, right? Yeah, the physical part is that's why I'm saying ruling that out. So, but yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. I'll have to keep Tiffany. I'll keep you in the loop with her. Yeah. So. Yeah,
and tell her if she wants to talk sometime to just give me a call and I'll remote view her and see what I can tell.
Really? Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, if I hear her voice vibration, that's how I tune in. I tune into the person's name if it's coming from someone else, or listening to the person's voice.
Okay.
So don't call her. Don't call her in the middle of the night when you're terrified, because then she's going to call the police for you.
So Margie, is your what are your office hours, Margie?
I like to do this work after 5 o'clock because I run a couple of businesses and I'm very busy. So, you know, if you leave a message for me or send me an email is probably the best thing to do. And if I can give my email address, it's Margie Kay 06 at yahoo.com. Or just go to margiekay.com and there's all my contact info there.
I have to ask, is the K truly the name? Is that how
no.
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 Okay.
Actually what happened was I didn't want to use my real name for this type of work. For obvious reasons, when I was doing work with law enforcement, sometimes there's some bad guys involved. And I didn't want my real name out there, even though I always tell them to never tell anybody that we're speaking or anything like that. I don't want any publicity regarding that part of my work. Right. So, but you never know, something could slip. So I don't use my real name for that. So, and this is my pen name, and it comes from my maiden name, which is unpronounceable. So instead of K period, it's Kay for the last name.
Well, I'm partial to K only because it's, you know, the first letter of my first name. So.
Okay.
I'm with you. All right. Oh, well, let me throw this story at you. It's something I dug up before started the show, and I wanted to get your take on it. There's a Men in Black story. Supposedly, there's this claim that Men in Black are murdering UFO investigators after supposedly another mysterious death. Are you familiar with anything related to that?
Unfortunately, yes.
So it is a true story.
Is it a true? Well, share with us.
That's a good question. I don't know. Is it?
Actually,
Margie,
there are over 130 unexplained deaths of UFO investigators over the last 20 years.
Holy hell.
Holy moly.
20? What?
When you get into this field, you are taking your life in your hands.
Holy moly.
And there's a certain line that you do not cross with it. I believe I've learned what that line is, and so I keep most of, every investigation is confidential anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But if I talk about something in general, I'll only go to a certain point and then stop. So basically, what it involves is not with extraterrestrial stuff, but when you get to an involvement that has something to do with humans, that's where they don't want anybody to know.
And a lot of these quote-unquote deaths are probably ruled as suicides or illnesses.
They
illnesses.
shoot themselves in the back of the head twice.
That was one of the most recent ones, wasn't it? Who was that? There was somebody that just happened to recently. We were talking with. Yeah,
you're right, Tiffany.
With, one of our guests about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up now. So do you feel threatened in this field at all?
Well, a little bit. I've never had anybody walk up to me and say, hey, we don't like what you're doing, you need to stop. But I've had some hints about that. And for instance, government vehicles following me or showing up on an investigation site, and they clearly say government vehicle on them, and they're brand new. I did have one case where it was a real high-profile case here in Kansas City during the UFO Flap in 2011, and we were on a site. I was there with 3 other investigators and 2 witnesses who moved to a different area, and I was by myself sitting in the car waiting for them. And another very big vehicle pulled up beside me and blocked me in. I couldn't move anywhere. And it was kind of a remote area, and it was at the end of a cul-de-sac where nobody ever went. So there was no good reason for a vehicle to be there. And that was kind of a sign, that something, that they were there. And I've had them show up at my house outside and sit in front of my house, and they've tapped my phones, all my business phones. They're listening to this conversation right now. And it's just something you get used to because, it's kind of silly because really I don't know any more than they do. They probably know a lot more than I do. And by listening, they're not going to find anything new out.
We were discussing the Men in Black before the show started. It makes me wonder what it actually takes to be investigated, or what is the point where these Men in Black characters come into your life and say, you might want to stop talking about that, because I haven't had any contact with that, and I've been experiencing this for some time, and I just sort of wonder what it takes for that person to get harassed by the Men in Black or government figures.
It's when you go public. It's when you go very, very vocal and start telling everybody.
Which is what we're doing here today.
And especially, here's the thing, if it's something intangible, so you say you saw an ET, okay, that's not tangible. But if you have physical damage to your body or to your vehicle or your house, or you have an illness that occurred when this happened, and so now you're getting evidence of exposure. That's where the problem is.
Think about that, Tiffany. In life in general, if you have damning evidence that something either exists or somebody did something very wrong, you are in life. You are marked, whether it's crime or, you witness a death. Margie, who killed President Kennedy?
I'm not even going there. Not even.
No way, whoa.
No, I don't.
Whoa,
I do
Margie.
not. Don't remote view that.
No, wait. I think that
Absolutely
might be.
not. I
You're not
like
gonna go
reading
there?
too much. There are certain things
All
I
right.
won't look at, and that's
Okay.
one of them.
What about hypothetically? Was it? Well, let me do this. Is it possible that President Kennedy was assassinated because of his beliefs and willing to share UFO information, secrets, technologies with other countries.
Yes.
Or maybe just with the American public.
Or the public, right.
That's a strong possibility.
You know, we're taking it a step further here, but I actually heard through the grapevine, too, that supposedly Marilyn Monroe might have been a victim of the fact that she knew, was it Marilyn and, was it John?
Yeah.
Or was it, well, not with the kid?
Yeah, it was
so,
JFK. Yeah, they think that he told her some things and they didn't want the public to know. So that is a theory.
Yeah. You hear it here. Nothing is off limits on our show. Marilyn Monroe.
I have a serious question. Besides
Whoa.
Marilyn, everybody loves Marilyn.
What's that supposed to mean,
No,
Tiffany?
everybody
A
loves
serious
Marilyn.
question?
No. That was serious as well. No.
Okay, all right.
That was
Go ahead.
serious as well. The thing that I'm curious about is, have you ever experienced someone remote viewing you while you were remote viewing them?
Oh, that's...
Or ever recognized while you were doing this?
Yes, I have. And it was very unnerving.
Wow.
Yes.
I've had actually several times. What I was doing at the time was looking at an experience that somebody had where they thought they had been abducted by extraterrestrials. And I was immediately taken to a ship, or I was on a ship and watching the scene unfold in front of me with the ETs standing around the person. And mind you, this is an event that would have happened in the past, yet the ETs knew I was there and they turned and looked at me every time.
Oh my God. I had the exact same experience. We're going to have to talk about that off the show, because that just cleared up a lot for me.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why can't that be show material?
Okay. She was looking in on one. Same thing happened with me. I was looking, I literally had just closed my eyes, and it was like a screen opened to me. And the screen was showing this woman who was human laying down on a table with ETs working down at her feet. I saw her head. And as soon as I realized what was going on, these two ETs looked directly in my face, and I heard them say, "You're not supposed to be here." And from what my experience, then I ended up saying, "I'm just curious as to what's going on. I'm not here to judge or anything like that. I'm just learning." And so they let it continue. But it was amazing to have that connection and be like, "Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm sorry." Like, it's like walking into the wrong classroom and everybody looks at you and you're like, "Oh, crap, wrong place, wrong time. I apologize." But the given the consent to observe was a first for me.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I just on both occasions just turned and left because I knew they could see me. So,
yeah. Do you think that's a bad thing? Do you think that they shouldn't be able to know you or or sense your interest in this subject?
No, I just think it's a matter of perception. They're so much further advanced than we are, because what this shows us is that there's a whole world of space-time out there that we don't understand. See, because if we're traveling in the past to look at something and they're standing in the past and then they see us, just try to wrap your head around that thought for a second. That's very difficult for us to understand because we're so used to linear time, in our third and fourth dimensional world. I don't think that they're worried about it one way or the other. If they really didn't want you there, they would get us out of there. I think, in my case, I just turned around and left because I just didn't want to have any confrontation. But also knowing this now, I know that if I try to do this again, the next time. I know what's going to happen. So I'm expecting it, and maybe I'll try to have some kind of a dialogue with that ET at that moment.
Do you feel that you can move either forward or backward in time when you remote view?
Yeah, it's not as easy for me to go forward in time, and I think that's just because of my own, linear time mental block type of thing. But I have done it. I have done it when it's something really important, or if there's a major catastrophic event. I have been shown the future by ETs, and if it's something that's very emotional and unfortunately tragic, I am able to see that. I think it's just because there's a deeper imprint in time when there's something like that, rather than looking for some missing car keys in the future or something like that. That's not important, so I'm not going to be able to see it.
Is it a possibility that we're just dealing with people who've been able to travel back in time? This is a recurring cycle. Is that the future is just coming back and helping us, either helping us or changing things? Or
yeah, that is a theory, and that's entirely possible. If they have the ability to time travel from the future and come back and maybe change some things that changes their future, they could be us. That's entirely possible. But I think just based on the conversations I've had with extraterrestrials, there are all possibilities. Some people that are traveling back in time, and for instance, the airships, the 1897 to 1915 airships that were seen all over the United States. Well, in fact, many of the witnesses said that the things that these people talked about, and they looked like humans, they were kind of like observers, like they were tourists almost in these things, and they would talk about weird things like, well, we're on our way to Cuba to help with the war, when the war didn't actually start till a year later. So it's like they're time travelers, but they were in the wrong time at the moment, and they needed to go a year forward. So this is going on.
Is that when they look at their watch and it's like, oops, wait a minute, this is a wrong year?
I don't know. The whole thing is very bizarre, and then they just abruptly stopped.
Well, that's where the iWatch came from, right?
Oh, really?
They came from the future. Yeah, that's what I say. I swear, those things confuse the heck out of me, and I know they're supposed to be easy, but I don't want one.
Here's one winding down with you, Margie, but there's a couple more topics I want to throw at you, and then we'll let you go. Las Vegas, they have a betting line for everything, any and everything. There is a betting line that a world leader, UK Prime Minister, or U.S. President will announce that aliens are actually here visiting us. That odds went from, at the beginning of the year, 1,000 to 1 to recently 25 to 1.
Wow.
Supposedly, I didn't know this either, but at the beginning of July 8th was World Disclosure Day. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly, speaking at a Alien Cosmic Expo, Stephen Bassett, who is America's only registered UFO lobbyist, acknowledged on that June 8th date that he is convinced that President Obama will reveal the truth before the end of his presidency, and has placed a bet on it, basically $30,000 of his pay or something like it. It was a bet. I didn't know. Are you familiar with this?
On November 3rd?
It would be in November.
I am not familiar with that, but I can tell you this. I have been told by several of my ET friends that I'm in telepathic communication with that there is going to be a big surprise in September or October at the latest. and that it likely has something to do with extraterrestrials.
I felt that too.
You
and
felt
it's going
it?
to they said it will shock the world. The whole world will know.
Except for Margie Kay. Margie will not be. She will not be shocked.
I will not be shocked. Well, yeah, and I can also feel the vibration of something really, really big happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't put my finger. I mean, I can't. They're either blocking me from seeing that or something, because I cannot see exactly what it is that's going to happen.
It's a surprise.
It's going to be big, yeah. And I'm also feeling that this kind of sense of foreboding that there's going to be a worldwide disaster that's going to be around the coastlines, around the entire world. I see flooding up the coastlines of every place in the world. And so the only thing in my mind that could make that happen is a pole shift, which has happened times in the past, and we're overdue for it, or an asteroid.
Now, one of the things that I've seen in different visions is I've been in a very, very high, like a 17th floor, which I don't know why it's 17, but 17th is the floor that I always seem to be on. And it's like just a tidal wave that comes and just washes everything away. And the beach is gone and the building's gone. And that's one of the things that I keep getting over and over again. And I'm really concerned about that, because I have a house in Florida.
Oh boy!
I'm like, well, we only have it for a little bit longer. It's going to get wiped away. But in Kentucky, we don't have to worry about that. I'm like, oh, all those Californians and Floridians, and it's scary, but I feel safe here in Kentucky for some reason, even though we have tornadoes and droughts and we have, natural disasters.
Yeah. But
I don't feel like that is going to happen here. Obviously it can't, but I mean, the Great Flood did occur,
Well, maybe
it could, but I mean, I guess in a polar shift, land that hasn't been covered in, eons will be uncovered again. I don't know, but so it's a very scary thought to think about that. I mean, look at Indonesia, where we had the big tsunami in, was it 2004? It was horrible.
Yeah.
And that can happen again, and I feel it. I feel it exactly like you do. I feel it. Let's hope we're wrong.
Yeah, I hope so.
Margie, can I ask you, this is actually yes or no, and if you want to elaborate, especially if it's a yes, please do. With your remote viewing, and maybe Tiffany with YouTube, is there an end game? Do you see, like, I can't see any further than this? Like, you've hit a wall.
Oh.
You've hit something that tells you that, ooh, this might be the climactic moment. This is the end all be all. Have you had
the
that?
Armageddon for the entire world? You mean?
Yeah. Right.
No, I have not seen something that destroys the entire world. The coastline issue, I've been told, will take out 2/3 of our population, which is a horrid, catastrophic event. However, the ETs have placed some rods of some type at the North Pole and South Pole in order to try to stabilize the Earth in some fashion that I don't understand. They've just showed me the picture of it, and reduce the shock. But there is another event that I should mention as well, and this is the New Madrid Fault, and I see the shaking. It is a huge earthquake. I hear 10.0 over and over, and the Missouri River and the Mississippi River flooding terribly and taking out many homes are floating down the rivers and trees I see. And it just, like, for instance, comes in and floods almost half of the state of Missouri.
Well, you just screwed up my plan there.
Yeah.
Because we're on the New Madrid fault.
Yeah. I almost didn't say that, but
yeah.
I thought I'd better, because that's one of the things I'm supposed to be talking about and letting people know, so they can be prepared, because nobody is going to be able to help anyone. FEMA, no one is going to be able to help with that big of a disaster. You have to be prepared on your own. So these preppies, they've got it right. I would say be as prepared as you possibly can.
Well, Kevin, get a boat.
Well, hold on. You're starting to impress me even more, Margie, because we hadn't even gone there, and my next question was a FEMA question, and you just brought it up. What am I wearing right now, Margie?
Oh, if you really want to know.
I do want to know.
Oh, I did this with Jimmy Church and told him what color underwear he had on and freaked him out. Let me just look at your shirt. How's that?
Yes.
I'm seeing buttons on the shirt in the front. Is that right?
No, actually, no.
Okay.
But I'll open the patio door and let you in visually, later if you want to. Anyways, what I'm getting at.
You don't need to do that.
FEMA.
He'll put one on for you, Margie.
I will.
Just put one on.
Yes.
So you're sitting there in no shirt doing the show.
No, I'm wearing a shirt. It's just a T-shirt. But anyways,
okay.
The FEMA. How much control does FEMA have? Because in theory, it's not in theory. Well, in theory, to me, I'm curious to know what the conspiracy theorists think. When these huge type of emergency events happen, or some kind of order, shake-up, goes down, FEMA is kind of like in place to assume control, right?
That's my understanding of it, that if martial law is declared, then they are the rule of law.
Yes. What's your take on those guys running the show?
I try not to think about that, but if you want me to remote view, I can try to do that right now.
Well, they didn't do a very good job with Katrina.
No, and the fact is that as much as our government wants us to believe that they're there to help us in times of disaster, there's always some political thing that's going to get in the way, or communication issue, or just getting to a place. We've got a transportation issue. Because let's say the New Madrid fault went off in the Mississippi River. Every bridge that goes across the Mississippi I have seen crashed to the ground and destroyed. So there's no transportation across east-west. And that's going to just basically stop our goods transport for the trains and the trucks. And there's not going to be food. Within 3 days, all the food will be gone out of the stores. It'll be, a horrid disaster if it does happen. I hope it doesn't. But I keep seeing it over and over, and I keep getting communications that it's imminent.
I just wanted to tell you that, by the way, I just realized I'm wearing a shirt with buttons.
Oh, I was looking at the wrong person.
You got the wrong host.
I got the wrong host.
I mean, I know you're partial. I know you and Tiffany have history, but come on, work with me now.
Let me explain how remote viewing works. For me, it has to be something that's important, something there's some emotion around, so that the vibration is very heavy in the air, if that makes any sense to you. To say, well, if I'm really upset about my keys being lost, I can find them. But if you're upset about your keys being lost, I might not be able to find them. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Margie, for the record, I think I'm important. I think I give good vibrations. Actually, what was that song? Is that Marky Mark, Tiffany? Good Vibration?
Yeah.
Later on tonight, Margie, just humor me. Take 30 seconds of your time, close your eyes, say my name, and try to connect. If I feel this electricity go through me, I'll know it's you.
Okay. I will do it. I will do it.
Just humor me, Margie.
Okay.
I'm
as soon as
just
we
one
get
of
off
those
the
guys.
phone.
Just there. All right, Margie. Before we let you go, share with us all of your social media and all the where you can be found at.
Well, just basically, if you go to Margie Kay, MargieKay.com, that's got links to my other sites and my blogs. My email is margiek06@yahoo.com. The UNX News Magazine website is unxnewsmagazine.com. I've got, let's see, I have several books out, and those are on my site. Gateway to the Dead, which is a ghost hunter's field guide, and that's from a psychic's point of view, so it's a little bit different than most of the books out there. And also has some tips in there about how to increase your psychic abilities and remote viewing abilities in order to communicate with spirits and also extraterrestrials at the same time, and your spirit guides, things like that. And there's some protection methods in that book. And I've got the book Haunted Independence that's been out for several years about Independence, Missouri. Working on finishing up a new book called the Kansas City UFO Flap, which is about some of the smaller flaps, but mainly the bulk of the book is from the 2011 to 2013 flap that was here. We had more sightings here than anywhere in the world during October of 2011. And some of the stories in there are just absolutely incredible. Close encounters, likely abductions, things like that, and a lot of evidence.
Is Missouri still a hot spot? Considered a hot spot these days?
Missouri has been a hot spot for many years, and it still remains. Yeah.
Right.
Our hot spot right now has moved to the Lake of the Ozarks. I've got just today I had 8 reports from the lake.
Oh, wow, Tiff.
From different people, including a deputy sheriff.
Well,
so we've got
that always drives me crazy when someone of authority or someone who wears a uniform, who is in theory has been trained to kind of rationalize what they've witnessed or encountered and then speak.
Yeah.
I'm blown away when going back, and Margie, I know we're keeping it, but what was the thing in 2013, the Senate hearing or whatever, when all the people met at, I guess it was in 2013, went to D.C. and
the National Press Club,
right?
Yeah,
and
headed by Stephen
How
Greer.
in the hell can people just turn a deaf ear to all of these military people? Not just military, there was governors and people who we put our trust in, who spoke of experiences and stuff. I'm blown away how this stuff is not more mainstream. Because
you notice the mainstream media didn't touch that, and it should have been.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It was buried on the 6th page of the paper. It should have been major news, and if anybody had watched that, they would have been totally convinced there was something going on. But once again, the media is part of the cover-up.
Okay. I totally agree. Margie, we're at 11:23. We do have live time until midnight. Do you have more time to hang with us?
Sure. I'll stay.
Your bladder's okay?
Yep. Doing good. And I've got my tea here.
I'm actually getting my needles actually starting to hit the red with the blood, but we're moving forward.
Right now might be a good time to give our listeners a little update on what we're actually doing here and introduce. So Margie Kay is our guest. We're discussing remote viewing and a lot of different paranormal and ET topics. You can check out our page on Facebook and Blog Talk Radio and YouTube, and please like all of our pages. We would really appreciate it. It's been a great time so far. Mm-hmm. What I would like to discuss next would be maybe in the realm of other experiencers within the community and different types of ways to identify if you are actually being contacted by an ET or not. Can you help us to provide that type of information and for our listeners, Margie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There are certain signs that you look for when a person is an experiencer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so some of the signs are psychic abilities, Rh negative blood, although not always. I mean, mine's A positive, but that's one you look for. You look for missing time, people that don't have an explanation. They're in one place and then they're in another, and they have no explanation for some time lapse that occurred. Mm-hmm. They would have seen UFOs, unidentified objects in the sky, and usually closer, or actually seen what they believe to be extraterrestrial beings or interdimensional beings, beams of light from nowhere that can't be explained, either coming into the house through windows or outside, beams of light shooting down to the ground. They may be witnesses to orbs. Quite often, people explain something that they call a ball of light or an orb, which would be, something small, either from teeny tiny or up to even in basketball size. But generally, they're about a softball size, just in general, as a rule. A UFO or ET experiencers, which is what we call them, often see these and outside, inside the house, and then sometimes they even interact with them and play with them. And they would say, "Oh, when I was a kid, there was this ball of energy that would come over the back fence, and I would play with it, and and it would bounce around and stuff," or something like that. So they're going to have unusual things happening in their lives that other people don't have around them. And they may also have implants, and that can be detected with an EMF meter or sometimes a metal detector, something like that. They may have scars that suddenly appear out of nowhere, like a scoop mark or maybe a triangular shape, or 3 dots in a triangle shape, something like that is common. And these things, something that you might call a wound, will often heal itself within about 24 hours. It'll be completely gone faster than normal. But in some cases, these marks on the body will stay with them their whole lives, like a triangle mark or something will stay with them their whole lives.
Wow.
I know it's a lot to take in, but do you really think that most people even recognize these as possible strange situations? I mean, do most people even acknowledge that they've got something different on their body, or do most people just go about their day and not even recognize it?
I think most people may notice something for a minute and then forget about it. They, in a lot of cases, I've talked to witnesses who'll say, I just remembered that 10 years ago I had this mark on my body and disappeared, and I had completely forgotten about it until something triggered the memory. And so many people now are waking up, so to speak, and they're recognizing what's going on. And in fact, there's so many that this is happening to, that I used to think maybe 10% of the world was experiencing this, but now I think it's 100% of the world. I think every single person has been in contact with extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, but they don't recognize it for what it is. And in fact, some people believe that their house is haunted and they're seeing ghosts, when in fact, when they describe this to me and describe the other things that have happened, you realize this is an ET experience and not a ghost experience that's happening.
Right, Tiffany?
Yeah. It's a hard conversation coming from a woman that is just so amazing to hear all these different things, and they're just so many pieces falling into the right spot, and It's very strange because all I think about is, and this is pretty much the only reason I've gotten into this field, is I want to be able to protect my children or educate them so that they can be comfortable in their skin and be able to experience these things without fear, or be able to shut it down when need be. If it's really happening to everyone, I'm really surprised that not everyone talks about it. It's still so taboo and still so difficult. And like Margie said earlier, you can lose friends over it. You can lose, your neighbors, and everybody will ostracize you. And there's just different stigmas that are placed on people like us, and it's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, it is, and it is kind of like going through post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is, because it is. It is such a strange, bizarre phenomena that is so difficult to accept. And some people never accept it. They never get used to it, and they deal with it from a position of fear about it. And that's one thing that I want to let people know, is that in doing over 1,000 investigations, paranormal and UFO, so many people I've talked to, not one of them were severely injured by the ETs. So what is it that they want? They must be doing something to assist us in some way, helping us genetically, repairing things. I know in my case, I've had several health issues fixed by extraterrestrials. I know that I have. I've witnessed it, and they will help when needed. They'll help when you call out to them, and it's like they're higher spiritual beings too. That's another thing people have to realize. They are they're more intelligent. They're in a higher vibration. They're a higher spiritual plane, and most of them are what we would call benevolent.
Mm-hmm.
They're here to help us. Not all of them. Some of them have other agendas, but they're being kept at bay by the good guys, so to speak. And they're never going to be allowed to wipe out the whole human race. If they wanted to, they could have done it a long time ago. So I think people need to relax. They need to not have this fear, and when the fear goes away, then you have the ability to communicate, and you can communicate telepathically. And receive messages and maybe get some answers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Stop saying at the same time as me, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
Margie, is it possible that us on planet Earth, on this blue rock, and I'll shout out to the guests from the other night, Tiff, are we like a reality show for the higher beings? Because here's my take. I'm gonna share my little take on life. I think that my birth date, I have a born on date, and I think, as we all do, I have a true end date. Somewhere in my DNA, if they could truly understand everyone's genetic makeup, I think there is a marker in all of us. This is my opinion. You take my marker, I have an end date. There's something in my genetic makeup that will tell you when I take my last breath. It's just how it's going to be. I don't believe in coincidences. Shit happened for a reason, and it's just the path we're going down. We're together right now because it's just how all three of us, our roads have just led us. Now, my end date is whatever. We all have the end date. I just think that every soul or every, every human has this within them that eventually I can see that we can be understood from, it's like the soul that when I took my first breath, my path was already laid down. It's laid out for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just think, by the when my time comes, and I hope it's painless, it is what it is. And go ahead.
I agree with you. I've been told by my guides and ET contacts that we all have a purpose. There are no coincidences. We are where we're supposed to be every minute, so that we can learn what we need to learn in this lifetime.
Right.
And that goes over and over and over again in multiple lifetimes. Because we're all headed to the same place. It's just whatever our path is to take us there. We have to get to different. We have to progress, in other words, and raise our vibrations to higher and higher levels as we move along. But like you said, it's not a coincidence that the three of us happen to be together right now talking, and for whoever the listeners are, they're getting whatever message it is that they need to hear right now.
Right. So here's another take I'm going to throw at you guys. Heaven and hell, I'm not a religious person, but a part of me believes that heaven and hell at the end of our lifetime is not a place up in the sky. Could heaven and hell be another planet or another location where we physically, based on how our lives go here, the next step for us, if it's quote unquote heaven, is at this beautiful planet where we're on the ocean, we're walking on the beach every day, the water is clear, or this planet hell where it's dark and rocks and the Kardashians are on all the time. Is that the bullshit that for hell? I'm trying to give the religious people the benefit of the doubt, because I do think as our souls move on, I do think we do move on, and I feel like the next step will be potentially another planet, another physical, based on where I've been or what I experienced back in another lifetime is why I'm here now. And evidently I did something very cool in my last lifetime to give me the opportunity to hang out with you guys tonight. So here we are.
Me too. I believe that.
Yeah. Mara, what's your take? Heaven and hell. State of the mind, or what's that? Sorry.
Well, see, no, I'm not religious either, but I'm a spiritual person. And I've been really, really lucky to be able to even communicate with beings of a higher vibration, who have been assisting me. And what I've been told is that there is no hell. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that actually, if you look at history, if you go way, way back, a couple thousand years or a little longer, you're going to find that hell was created by Christianity, by the people in charge at the time, who wanted to control people. Yeah,
right, exactly.
So they made the certain things up to keep control of the population and try to make them behave better than they were. And and that's not, I guess that's not such a bad thing if it calms people down. But what I've been told.
Back to like Dante's Inferno? I mean, was there really no hell before then? No purgatory before then?
Oh, way before that. Yeah. The purgatory, of course, is in the Catholic Church only. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And you go back to ancient times, Celtic times, the church actually lifted a lot of the traditions of the time, and a lot of the names, like Saint Beatrice was a saint, and before that she was a what they call pagan, but a Celtic goddess. And you start looking at all of this stuff, and you realize that what happened was the church took a lot of these traditions in order to convert these people to Christianity. So they said, hey, we've got incense here, and we've got Beatrice over here, and we've got so the people would follow that, and that's how Christianity spread so much. They did the same thing in Rome. They took some of their pagan gods and move them over. But one of the things I don't like to talk about is religion, because it's such a hot topic with people.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've been told by the ETs, and in fact my mother, who passed over 10 years ago, contacted me a week later and told me what it was like on the other side. And I said, do you know what God is? And she says, well, they don't call it that, they call it the source. And I was also in contact with Valiant Thor, the extraterrestrial, and he said they call it the source. And it's really, it's a gigantic sun at the center of the universe. And it's this intelligence and consciousness. And Valiant Thor recently told me that each one of us, he said, imagine each one of us as a cell in the human body. You're part of the whole, and you communicate with the whole. And so that's what it's like in the universe. We are a part of the source. We're not separate from it, and we're all connected.
Mm-hmm. So Valiant Thor, you're talking about the one who is this handsome, slick black hair, attractive man back in the 50s and 60s who's never aged.
Kind of like your co-host, Tiffany.
He's an immortal. Yes, exactly like you, Kevin.
Just like Kevin, okay.
Love you, Margie.
Yes. In fact, Kevin is an ET. We determined that, didn't we? Yes.
I think that Kevin is Valiant Thor's brother.
Okay.
You should see You should see my hammer. Just saying.
You got a Thor's hammer?
If you have a Thor hammer in your office, I'm going to freak.
You're going to freak. We don't want the guests to freak out on us right now. But continue, Tiffany. I'm sorry.
Okay, I've really thought about Valiant Thor a lot, because we've seen the images, we've seen the pictures, we've heard the dialogue, and it seems like he was held as a guest here, and I really would like to believe that we do have this compassionate person who would like to train us and educate us in the ways of the universe. But is he really that person, or is it a little bit more complicated?
Well, he's very complicated. Just for a little background, he visited the planet and the Pentagon specifically from 1957 to 1961. And he spoke with Eisenhower and the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
He was here for certain reasons to help humanity, but that help was refused for monetary reasons. And he was also in contact with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Frank Stranges. And he was a minister. He visited Valthor many times, and then at the Pentagon, and then later Valiant Thor stayed in contact with him and would visit him at his home and would just suddenly appear. He was one of these beings that has the ability to just appear somewhere. He doesn't really have to travel in a ship, although he does have a ship. Well, he has not left the planet. He's still on the planet. There is a craft that's in the southwest, and he has a crew, and they have certain things they're doing with certain people that they're in touch with. And it happens to be that I became in contact with him in 1986 when I was living in Seattle. He suddenly appeared to me a few times and said his name was Thor, but that was it. I didn't know who he was. He gave me the ability to see through the human body. He called it X-ray vision, but it's much more than that. I can see not only bones, but organs and tissues and blood, and on a microscopic level, and he's the one who gave me that ability. Well, anyway, for real, yeah. It's crazy. So I was dealing with having to work with that for many years, and that's become I've become more adept at it over the years. Well, I didn't know who he was until about 3 years ago. And through a strange set of circumstances, another person was contacted by him who told her that I needed to contact him, which is very strange, but telepathically. And so I did. And then he told me exactly who he was, and he was Commander Thor, Valiant Thor. Mm-hmm. Then I got in touch with Craig Campobasso, the Hollywood film producer, and I had him on my show several times. So he and I became friends. I had him come to Kansas City and premiere his film Stranger at the Pentagon, which is named after the book by Dr. Frank Strange's. And if anybody's interested in that, just go online and order that film. I would suggest it. It gives an idea of what happened. And then I since found that Valiant Thor has been in touch with other people like me. So he communicates things to us and gives us certain abilities, and then we're able to spread that out to others and share that information, and also, physically help people with healing, or in my case, I do some healing work now, which is my latest deal. But mostly it's diagnosis. It's diagnosis of health issues, looking through the body, and then I'll point something out and the person can take care of it.
We had a guest on recently who sort of tracked patients in this way. He actually had a group of women who diagnosed themselves with breast cancer through dreams, and he followed them. And it was a really cool show because it's sort of obviously very confusing for people, and then trying to get from a dream to the doctor's office and telling your doctor that you think you have breast cancer, and they're looking at you like you're perfectly fine. But when they go in and they actually do find it, it's like, well, how did they know that? Well, there's no earthly way of knowing that other than listening to your intuition. I sort of wonder if that dream state allows you to get into a higher level of consciousness and be able to identify these things with or without help from outsiders.
It does.
But it sounds like this Valiant Thor guy who, we've heard mention of. I've never been in contact with him. You can send him my way. But I wonder
has his own agenda.
what other things they can show us, they can do to help us and be better people, be better friends, be better neighbors, be better family members, and be better people in general. What's the end game? Are we supposed to be better people, or are we just going to end up being wiped out? That's what I wonder.
No, the end game is that they are helping us to raise our consciousness and raise the consciousness of the planet, and help people move up in vibration and understanding. And by doing that, and you mentioned the dreams, the dream state is the first step to communication with higher beings. So never discount dreams, because the spirits who have passed on, your loved ones, family members, can contact you in dreams. And so can, ultra-dimensional or extraterrestrial, higher dimensional beings, your spirit guides, they can contact you in dreams too. And the way you tell whether this is just a regular old silly dream or a real contact dream, so to speak, is that it will be in color and it will be very vivid. There'll be a lot of detail, and you'll remember it upon waking. So you want to write down everything right after you wake up so you don't forget later.
Which I never do. I don't want to keep a log of it. I don't want my husband to find it and like.
It'll be in your subconscious.
Wow. This show's been heavy tonight. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that.
No,
it's great.
You never know where things are going to go. You know, they go where they're supposed to.
Right.
Exactly. All right, Margie. This is, as we're winding down, I do a little quick segment to close, which we call Round of Shots, kind of a tongue in cheek off our shooting from the lip thing. It's just.
Do I get a real shot?
That's the plan. When you stroll through Louisville the next time, we got to work that out.
Okay, that sounds like a
deal. First 3 rounds are on me. How about that?
Okay.
Sounds
good to me.
Actually, I don't drink, so I'll have a glass of wine. That'll be it.
All right, well, that's fair. All right, fine. All right, right now, Margie, if someone grabbed your iPod or music media, what would be the current song playing?
Probably.
Are you a metalhead?
No, I am not a metalhead. I'm a jazz and funk head.
Okay.
Ooh.
So it'll probably be...
Is it George Clinton and the P-Funkadelics?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, I'm a musician, and I played in funk and rock and fusion bands for years.
Holy moly. See, we've got another guest for Wednesday night.
Yeah. Side note, Margie, Shooting from the Lip, per se, does 3 shows during the week. There's a Monday, Wednesday, and then our Friday show. Friday is strictly paranormal. But my Wednesday night show is strictly dedicated to local musicians in the Louisville area. And that is so fun. Music, to me, music is the universal language. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, it's just awesome. But wait, real quick, music-wise, what do you play or do?
Electric bass and upright bass.
Wow.
Awesome.
Oh.
That is awesome.
A paranormal chick with the music talents. I think I'm kind of falling in love here, Tiffany.
I know.
I know.
I told you, I get good guests.
Yeah. If I didn't have some health issues, I would just be a musician and nothing else. Let's put it that way. But I've got fibromyalgia and I can't play very well.
We'll work with you. Now Margie now has set herself up to possibly get a text after 3 a.m. in my state of mind at that moment.
I will not answer a text at 3 a.m.
That's fine. Okay, you don't have to answer it. You don't. Okay. But at least you'll say, oh, he was thinking of me at 3 a.m. But anyways. All right, so what did you say? What is your current song? What did you say? Did you name a song?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't, but I would have to say, play that funky music.
I love that.
Oh.
One of my favorite songs to play.
Yeah.
Because that bass line is so good.
Yes. All about that bass. All right, if you do a radio show too, when you're doing a show, what would be a pet peeve?
Well, it would be having a guest on.
Don't say dead airspace. That's the norm. Yeah, go ahead.
That's the norm. But a guest who you think is going to be really great, and you know they're real intelligent, and they write a great book, but they're horrid on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I agree. There's been times on some other shows I've done where, you ask a question, you think, I say to myself, I just asked a question that I think I'm going to get about a 2-minute response, and if I'm doing the show by myself, this is going back a ways, I can jet to the bathroom real quick, and I'll come back and he'll still be talking. Well, that's not been the case. That was like, I asked you a question, you only gave like a 10-word answer. It's like, ugh. All right, if you could choose one superpower, what would it be?
She's already got all of them.
I have some superpowers, but anyway, I would say
that's a good point. Throw that in my face now. What would the one be if you could just use it?
It'd be able to zap people, and they would be perfectly healthy, and they have no health issues. That's the biggest problem in the world, I think.
I totally agree. That's very unselfish of you for a superpower. So, Name a Margie Kay guilty pleasure besides hanging with us at close to midnight on a Friday night on the East Coast time.
Besides hanging with you guys, I would have to say chocolates is my weakness. I'm totally addicted to chocolate.
Okay. Music,
I have to keep
chocolate.
it not in the house or not at the house, or I will eat it.
Gotcha. What is Margie's favorite phone app?
Oh, that would be Guy, so that when I'm doing investigations, I can tell where the planets and stars are and tell people what they're looking at or eliminate them.
All right.
I use it all the time.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. You know, the one that Micah Hanks introduced us to star charts. Have you used that one before?
Yes, that one's good too.
Yeah, it's a good one too. Yeah. I'll have to check the other one out.
Mm-hmm.
Last round of shot question. If you had access to a time machine and go anywhere in the past, living, dinosaur time, where would you go?
It would have to be during the Renaissance. I would like to go visit Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, wow. Yes. It's funny you said that. God, well, see, it's like kind of, you're kind of starting to scare me on a few levels. I reached out to Russ, Tiffany, this past week, and out of the blue, I saw something on TV. I said, I want to do a segment on Leonardo da Vinci for another show.
Now you just did.
Good Lord.
Don't ask me any more questions if you don't want to be scared.
She's a psychic. What do you expect?
I know.
Well, Da Vinci is, I've always been fascinated with him and his brilliance, and I really, really feel like he had outside ET influence.
And
I
the
agree.
drawings, his drawings were amazing, and
the mirror where you would have to you look in a mirror and you see this totally different. You know, there was the story inside the story with his work. So, wow, that was the last round of shot questions. Thus, I don't think we're buzzing after those 6 questions, but you know, I'm feeling pretty good. Margie, you came on and Tiffany kind of said, she gave me the impression that we were going to get about an hour out of her. I'm thinking, well, she hasn't even talked to us yet. Wait till she talks to us.
Well,
we'll
it was the
get her
idea
on
that I spoke to her before, and she's like, I just don't know how long I'm going to be able to hang. And I was like, well, it's 2 hours. And she's like, So we did it. We did it. Yeah.
We did it. It's 11 o'clock where I am right now, straight up.
We are into the midnight hour here in Louisville. Wow. Killed it. Margie came on and just, great show. Man,
well, you guys have really good questions, so I appreciate that. You know, a lot of hosts don't, and then they don't do any research, but you guys do, so.
I have to be brutally honest when you say that, because the truth is, and I'll speak for me, I don't know, Tiffany and I have a different way of going. I know on past shows, Tiffany will say, I've got 10 to 20 questions I've got lined up. I have really about generally 2 to 4, and I just let the conversation go with the flow. And then with you, honestly, tonight, Margie, this was one of the most painless shows to do, to think questions, because you're so into a lot of things, and every one of our conversations just led us to, just took us down the road for this show. And I'm all about the flow. I think Tiffany is more of the structured of us too. And
well, you guys balance each other out.
We do, because I think you can probably gauge that I'm the more, I'll add humor into the show, and I like to keep it, just kind of loose and fun. But at the same time, too, I've gotten some messages that this was a great show. Wow, the information that was shared was just over the top. And so that's to me, that's what it's all about, is good company, a great guest who knows what they're talking about, and some dialogue that, in this case, kept us going for 2 hours. So, hey, I'll pat our backs, Tiffany. I'll say it. We're a little different than the typical, or not typical, I don't want to, but the average show. I mean, it's who we are. Anyway.
We're usually a little bit lighter, a little bit more. You're very comedic, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean that's my you're getting me. I'm not.
I know.
I'm not pulling. I mean, this is just how I want to be, and unfortunately, Margie played along.
Yeah.
She may get off the phone like that guy thought he was a lot funnier than what he came across. She either faked it or she enjoyed it. So that's
I really enjoyed it. You guys are great. You had good questions, and I appreciate you not being shock jocks and turning on me halfway through the show like has happened to me in the past. So,
really?
Oh my goodness.
Oh, you wouldn't believe. You would
Margie,
not believe.
I'm still a baby in the community, but my thing is never insult a guest. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no reason for it. But there are people out there who just want to attack people just for the sake of entertainment, and they don't believe anything you say, and they attack everything you say. So I have to be really careful now. I pick and choose who I'm going to do interviews with, and of course, after we met, Tiffany, I knew your vibration level was real high, and I knew we'd be good. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, we are. Really, really thankful that you were able to come on tonight, and you did a great job explaining your abilities and getting us more comfortable with this whole realm of psychic ability and remote viewing. And I actually learned quite a few things this evening. I'm sure Kevin did as well. If you can just give us some of your actually, you did already give us your website, didn't you? So MargieKay.com.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's the main one.
Did you have any? Yeah. Okay. We would like to officially thank you, and let's give a shout out to KGRA.
Yeah.
That's how we got connected. KGRA with Rafe Hobbs and Robin Hobbs and Richard Dolan and Micah Hanks and Jimmy Church and all the other lovely people of KGRA, and hopefully someday we will get our stuff together and commit to the big KGRA. That's our goal, isn't it?
It's a great place to be. They're real pros there, and I really enjoy doing.
Those people so much. Every one of them has been fantastic. Hopefully,
we'll
join you.
Margie, give us a shout out, a heads up before you cross the Kentucky border, so we know when
I will. Every April I go through, and then there are other times as well. If an investigation comes up or something, I'll give you guys a shout, and we'll go
cool.
Maybe have some drinks or something.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Yes.
At no time were any animals or people hurt during this presentation of Shooting from the Lip.